Welcome back to my podcast. This is Gaurav, and I have been joined by none other than cricket analyst from England, James Butler, who has joined me all the way from England. We will be having a discussion today about the England squad for the fourth Test match, which has been announced 2 day earlier, I think. And I know I have been late, little much. So we will have this discussion, and we will definitely review the fourth Test match. And with the heavy heart, we'll talk a little bit about third Test match also. So what how went wrong to India? Or what happened with the England? Suddenly they have seems to be clicking all this top order batsmen. All the top order batsmen have been clicking. So we'll have this all this discussion in today. So James Butler, welcome back to my show, mate.
Always a pleasure, Gaurav. Good to see you again.
So with that very happy heart, first of all, congratulations on the third Test victory, mate.
I don't think I really had anything to do with it, to be honest. But
Yeah.
from an England point of view, it was very good, wasn't it? It was not often do you see England putting in a really complete performance, and I think right from the start, they were right on the money and saw it through. And I did say, actually, I tweeted at the time, because I've seen a lot of Test matches at Headingley. And I think often day one is the day to take wickets, and days 2, 3, and into 4 are often the best batting conditions. And I thought Virat Kohli made the wrong call. I could understand why he made that call at the toss, because it looked like a good batting track, and it was. But often day one is where you can get a few wickets and then prosper from there on. But I never thought that India would succumb as meekly as they did do.
Okay. So you have discussed about this third Test match. So I think by seeing 78 all out, you made the point that I think it was a bad toss to lose again for England, because they come out on the third Test match and they made business. It's like they bowled on the right challenge, on the right length, and
Gaurav, I think it was actually a good toss for England to lose.
yes.
Because they put Virat Kohli into the situation where, for once in a blue moon, he had to actually try and decide what to do. And it was understandable, as I say. But I think if you actually study Test matches at Headingley, winning the toss and batting isn't always the right thing. I'd subscribe to the WG Grace kind of scenario that if you win the toss, if it looks like a batting track, you think about it for a little bit. If it doesn't look like a batting track, you still bat, if it looks like a bowling track, you talk to somebody and then you bat. But I think 99 times out of 100, I think WG Grace got that exactly right. But I think Headingley is probably one of the few places where you actually think about bowling first. And you could see from Joe Root's face after the toss, when he went for his interview, I think he was quite happy. And as it proved, it was a good day to bowl.
So Joe Root was Joe Root was very clear. If he would have been won the toss, he would have bowled first, right, on that track.
I don't think he actually knew. I think he was still in a situation. Sometimes you see a captain walk out there and they're still not totally convinced what they're going to do, and they're almost hoping to lose the toss. And I think Joe Root got his wish on that occasion, that Virat Kohli, for once, as I say, I mean, it's not often Virat Kohli calls right at the toss, and he probably wishes he hadn't done. Sometimes it's really key to win a toss. I think that Headingley toss defeat for Joe Root was actually a good thing.
Lucas, you want to ask something?
Yeah, I said to you on the after that Test match before the toss, before the toss, I said that I probably would have bowled. I think there's enough in the pitch that says otherwise. And Headingley, as James said, you don't always bat there. Probably 90% of pitches around the world, you do want to bat first. Headingley is one of them. Another one is Hobart in Australia. Sometimes they do produce green top pitches in Hobart. Kohli not winning many tosses, I think, he just thought, I've won the toss and I just have to bat. I can't let up this opportunity. And unfortunately, I think he got it wrong come the decision. But having said that, India were actually pretty good in their second innings. as I mentioned. For some weird reason, they probably they probably wish their first innings was a bit like their second innings.
Yes.
So and that's really strange. That your second innings is completely more dominant than your first. And
I think Lucas, it fits into that narrative. I was saying that the day one is the wicket taking day, and then the few days after that are actually decent for batting on. I think India can look back on that third Test match, and they almost got themselves out of trouble, because I don't think days 4 and 5 were bad for batting. I think England bowled well, but I think some of the shots that India played on day 4, after all the hard work they'd done on day 3, they threw it away. They kind of all of that resistance that they'd mustered up on day 3, where they got themselves back into the match. Day 4, they threw that away, and that was disappointing, I think, from an India perspective.
Well, it's the same. It's the same for the Gabba. Day 1 is not the best for batting. It's really day 2 and day 3. That's the most best place to bat is on day 2 and 3, not necessarily day 1. Which a lot of teams struggle with that. Think, Brisbane, of course, it's a flat deck, you got to bat. But day 1 does take a lot of wickets if you bowl sensibly. So you can get into a false sense of security with pitchers these days, because it is whether we like it or not, it is predominantly a batsman game. And pitchers, like I said, 90 to 95% of them are bat friendly. And I just think Virat Kohli went into a false sense of security. Finally I won a toss and I have to bat, and I think it didn't work out for him, unfortunately.
Yeah. So guys, let's. I think I have one more point to discuss on the third Test match. I think for the England, there was a huge improvement on their top order batting. They finally clicked. There were a lot of talk about that England top order has been fragile. Who will open? Who will bat at number 3? But seeing the performance of the top order batsmen, I think, James, you would be very happy that Hamid finally clicked. Was batting at his position where he should have been batting on the second Test match. I think he was opening, and he played brilliantly in the third Test matches. And David Malan, after so many years, I think he has back on in the Test squad, and he made his position count. He made he again scored I think 70 odd runs. So the top order finally clicked for the England team.
Yeah, I mean, I think when last time we spoke, we talked about Hasib Hamid and the fact that he should be opening in that side.
Yeah,
obviously they decided to get rid of Sibley or send him back to Warwickshire, and Hasib took his opportunity, didn't he? As you say, he played really nicely in that first innings. And David Milan coming in at number 3, I think he's a better player now than he was when he played first time around. And he didn't do that badly the first time around. He averaged high 20s, didn't he? And scored a century in Australia. But he, I think, understands his game a little bit more. I think after that exposure to Test matches, was it 3-4 years ago, he went away and really kind of worked very hard. And we've seen the sort of proof in the pudding with the T20 performances and the one-day performances that he's put in. But I think he's done exactly the same amount of work in first-class cricket too. Scored a really nice 199 for Yorkshire at the start of this season. He's only played one first-class game all summer, so it was a big ask for him to come in and kind of hit the red ball straight away. But I think he knows his game, and I think he understands himself better. He understands himself as a person, and that can be quite important, because and coming in as an older player now, I think he's 33.
Yes,
he's got probably less to lose really this time around, because the first time it would have been life or death for him. It was his chance to play Test cricket. I think he's gone away from the Test arena and possibly even thought, that's me done now. I'm not going to get another opportunity. Now he gets a second opportunity, comes in and makes a 50 in the first innings, and I think he'll see this as a little bit of kind of Indian summer, if you like, to his Test career, and a chance to actually achieve something he didn't do the first time around.
I think I've seen his interview that where he talked. I think from the start, from the third Test, I think he has interviewed by the Sky Sport. I think I've just seen the video clip of that, and he said that he was also very surprised once he got a recall from the Test squad.
Yeah, I mean, he might have been, but I think he's been knocking on the door for a while now.
Yes.
I mean, England have had a little bit. England's interesting with their selection because they're very loyal, and I like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you give somebody a chance to really fail before you get rid of them,
Yeah.
because really, if you're selecting a test side and you're bringing somebody in for a debut, you believe in them
Yes.
enough to give them a chance, don't you? Rather than give them
Yeah.
one or two matches and then say goodbye. And England used to be far too much the other way, and kind of people. There are one test wonders in England's history, which
Yes.
that's just ridiculous. But I think Dom Sibley can't have too many complaints. He's been given a lot of
No.
test matches, and it's
Yes.
not who's to say that he might not come again. If he scores a lot of runs for Warwickshire, he'll put his name back in the frame. But I think David Milan deserved another go. And sometimes I think it's rather than blood somebody that's young in a series like this, going back to somebody that's been there, done it, knows what to expect, knows how difficult Test cricket can be, and he's a little bit older and a bit more mature, then I think that's a good thing. And David Milan's obviously proved that right so far. And I don't see him. I think he's going to score runs in Tests 4 and 5 too, and I think he'll be on the plane to Lucasland come the winter.
Okay. Lucas has been waiting for a very long period of
Yeah.
time. Okay. And so one more thing about this third test
Almost
match.
12 months before we play another test. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And we might,
Okay.
and because what's happened if in Afghanistan, that one-off test is now in jeopardy. So we
Yes.
could go into the Ashes completely underdone, and players that are going to be picked based on T20 form because they can't play any Sheffield Shield games before the Ashes because of the mandatory quarantine they have to do.
Okay, we'll have this discussion as is later on. I think one more point I want to discuss on this third test match, that when will Joe Root stop scoring runs? I think he's made a lot of runs. I think has he saved some runs for the Ashes also? Will he score all these runs in the Indian series?
Well, he's been scoring runs since the winter, hasn't he? And
Yes.
I mean, I know Joe a little bit from my time working at Yorkshire, and he is an absolute cricket badger nuffy or whatever you want to call it. He lives and breathes it.
Yes.
You can see that when he's playing. He's always smiling. He just enjoys being out there. So, if anybody's,
Yes.
it's not hard work for him to bat long. He just loves it, and he spent quite a bit of time during lockdown, I think, last summer and during the times off, analysing his own game, but looking at videos of Kane Williamson and really going into his game. And he took that opportunity to kind of take a step back and have a look at where he was in terms of his career, have a look at where he was in terms of his performance. And obviously the work that he's put in has done wonders, isn't it? Because he looks incredible. There's a video that England put out on Twitter where it's every single run scoring shot of his century in the last test match. And if you watch that, I'm mesmerized by it. People have kind of videos of a fire or something to calm themselves down. I want to get a video of that just playing on my TV over and over and over again, because it's just it's so impressive. The balance, the ease that he's just knocking it into the gaps, and the way he's playing at the moment is just really impressive. He looks completely in control of his own game, and he knows exactly what he's doing out there. You can't say that for every batsman in this series, certainly, Indian and English. But Joe Root just looks a class above. And, there was talk that he was not, I mean, this mythical Fab Four or whatever.
Yes.
There was talk that Joe was kind of had slipped out of it and had kind of gone down the pecking order, and maybe Babur Azam was replacing him or whatever. I mean, I think it should be a Fab Five now, because Babur's good enough to be included in the same bracket. But if anything, Joe's leading the group now.
Okay, you have talked about one very important thing, that he has watched a lot of videos of Kane Williamson, and by seeing his batting in last three test matches, and obviously, especially in these three test matches, where I've seen him that he scored a lot of runs during his innings, that around this third man area where he just nudged the ball and find the gap between the gully and the third slip. So Kane Williamson also bats like that. He when he is in the pressure, he just used to tap the bat and score the single on the third man. So once I see Joe Root playing in this three-test match, I I am very much sure once we talked about this Kane Williamson video, so I'm very sure that he must have watched a lot of video of Kane Williamson.
Well, in a way, Joe's always been a bit like that as well because he's very busy at the
Yes.
crease. You know, he's always got an out shot. He doesn't get bogged down against a particular bowler because he always finds a way to get down the other end. You see,
Yes.
you know, Dom Sibley's problem was that he got
Exactly.
stagnated. He just kind of stuck at one end and kind of ended up absorbing all of the pressure. Whereas Joe is very, very good at just putting his bat on it, sticking it into a gap, and or running it down to third man or flicking it off his hip or whatever, and just
Yes.
keeping that scoreboard ticking. And he's the it's incredible with Joe how often you watch him play, and he's been in there an hour. He might have faced 50 balls, and all of a sudden he's 33 not out or something, and he's up and running,
Yes.
and he's on his way to another 50-100. And you know, there's not many batsmen that find it. I mean, it's not easy. He's not. It's not an easy thing he's doing, but he's making it look
Exactly.
very easy.
He's also a very good
And
player of
all
spin.
those
Also,
300s were totally in a different situation, especially the quality of that Joe Root inning. Whether he scored those 300 in three test matches, all those 300 were in three difficult situations, the three different situations.
Yeah, and that I mean that's a little bit going back to Hasib Hamid. That's a little bit why. I mean, people are already starting to talk about Hasib and writing articles about his strike rate being quite slow. And you're thinking, there's nothing against Dom Sibley scoring slowly. I've got nothing against Sibley scoring slowly. It's just that he batted for 40 minutes, then got out after scoring really slowly, and he hadn't really achieved anything. He hadn't really blunted the
Yes.
attack, taken the shine off
Yes.
the ball, or taken the match anywhere. I've got nothing against somebody batting for 5 sessions and going along at a slow rate because everybody else bats around him then. So Hasib Hamid, yeah, not everybody can be a flash Harry and go out there and hit the fours all the
Yes.
way through. He batted quite quickly for him, I think, in the first innings against India at Headingley. But he's not always going to do that. But as long as he's got incredible powers of concentration, I was talking to Ben Slater, who's his opening partner at Notts, and at the time he hadn't been called up by England, and I was talking to Ben about how it was batting with him for Notts and what he was like as an opening partner, and he said that because Slats is quite a laid back, chatty sort of fella, I think, in the middle. Whereas Hasib
Yes.
gets into a bubble. He gets into a massive bubble of concentration. They might meet in the middle, but the words they exchange aren't plentiful by any means. It's not like a long conversation, and so his powers of concentration are huge. He's going to have rough times. He'll have great times, hopefully, as well. And he's gone through the mill. He's gone through the last 3 years or so of his career. He's had to basically rediscover himself as a human being and himself as a player because he must have had some really gloomy times, I think, in that period. So it was really good to see him score runs in that Test match and kind of reinstate himself as an opener for England because he's had some tough times over the last few years. And you know what it's like when everybody's talking about, oh, we need to replace Sibley, let's bring Hasib Hamid in, he's the obvious choice. But you only need a couple
Yes.
of Test matches where you don't score any runs and everybody's then saying, well, he's rubbish as well, let's move for somebody else. So it was important for him that he got that score on the board.
Okay. So I think let's move from the third test. Let's have a discussion on the fourth test,
Can't we
where
talk
I
about the
think
third
it
test all the
starts
way
from.
through, Gaurav? I like the third test. It's a good subject.
No, 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 no. I am done for the third test. It's been a very, I have talked with the third test with a very heavy heart, mate. I hope you can understand. So let's move on from the third test. Let's have a discussion on the fourth test. And I think England team announced for the fourth test. I think it was expected that Jos Buttler will not be playing for the fourth or fifth test because he will be becoming a father again. And we respect his decision, and I think I'm if I think Johnny Besto will be keeping, and another guy I'm just forgetting his name. Sam Billings. Yes, Sam Billings is included for the test series. Chris Woakes finally back after 1 year in this series. So let please tell us something about Chris Woakes, because will he be the fit and available and ready to go for the fourth test? Because been hearing a lot of things for the Chris about Chris Woakes, because he's not been fully fit, not played a lot of test matches, not been played a lot of county cricket. So, what's the update on Chris Woakes?
I think he's played a second team game. He played a 1 day, played at least one day game for Warwickshire.
Yes.
He's obviously come through that unscathed. The physios must have given him the go ahead because they wouldn't pick him unless they thought he could get through 5 days. So he's back in the frame, and he's an important cog in particularly in England. His record in England in Test cricket is incredible. So I think he walks straight back into the side as long as he rocks up and he gets through the practices and he looks okay. I think he plays. So yeah, that's a big plus for England, who have missed quite a few of their frontline bowlers over the last this summer. Jofra out and obviously Stuart Broad out as well. So having Chris Woakes back is a big plus for Joe Root.
So if Chris Woakes does make to this playing 11 for the fourth test, will we expect that Jamie Anderson will be given a rest for the fourth test match? I hope so. He must take some rest for the Ashes squad.
I've had a couple of Indians suggesting that to me as well, and I think it seems to be coming from the Indian side of things rather than the English side of things.
Keep going, Jimmy. Keep going.
Hoping that Jimmy Anderson's going to have a breather. So if you actually think about it, I mean, it's quite hectic at the moment. I mean, Lucas is waiting for a test match, but England and India are playing them week in, week out at the moment. We're playing played last week at Headingley. We played this week at the Oval, and then it's next week straight into Old Trafford. So they are coming thick and fast. But once we're through that, Jimmy gets the chance to stick his feet up for quite a while until he gets on that plane to Australia, because he doesn't play any other form. It's unlikely that he'll play for Lancashire towards the end of the season. So he'll get a chance to regroup, recover, and fire himself up for the Ashes. There was a conspiracy theory mentioned on my podcast, actually, Gaurav, that maybe with the uncertainty around the Ashes tour, that they've put the Old Trafford, because usually in England, the Oval is the final test match.
Yes.
Old Trafford's the final test match of this series. And the conspiracy theory is that they've made Old Trafford the final test match so that Jimmy can play his final test match and retire and walk off the pitch at Old Trafford.
I just got heard this news from Steve Harmison also, that he might be playing his last test match on the 5th test match and he might retire.
No chance. There's absolutely no chance of that happening, because he's going to be on that plane. I can see him retiring potentially after Australia. Particularly if England do well. I can see him thinking, I'll sit there with the urn and think, right, that's me done. But even then, I think he'll still want to carry on because he's fit, he loves it, and it's what drives him.
Who do England have next summer after the Ashes in England?
It's a good question. Not sure off the top of my head.
Is it possible he might retire after that series, after the home series?
Could do. I mean, we've been talking about when he's going to retire for the last 5 years. And every time he's asked about it, I mean, he's had a couple of little niggles, but he's got across them. Every time he's asked about it, he basically says, when I stop turning up at the nets for training and stop actually wanting to improve and try new things and stop loving it, that's when I'll retire. And I've heard other players say that there's just been little moments where they've not even thought about retiring, and they've got to a certain age, and then all of a sudden something's happening and something's just clicked in them, and they've just thought, I really can't be bothered with doing that, or I can't go again, or I can't face another pre-season or something, and they suddenly realize maybe there's other things in life and I'll try something different. I don't think Jimmy's got anywhere near that yet.
I think.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think what Jimmy Anderson, as he said, has on his side compared to other bowlers like Dale Steyn, is that he hasn't really been injured a lot. A few niggles here and there.
Yeah.
But you look at someone like Dale Steyn. Injury after injuries, elbow injuries, hamstring injuries. Some other injuries. In a way, Jimmy Anderson's been very lucky in that department. Even at age 38, 39, 37. He hasn't really had I don't remember him ever having an injury that's kept him out for 6-7 months or a whole tour.
He's missed a few test matches here and there, but nothing dramatic.
No.
I mean, what I'm hoping, Lucas, is that he deserves the right to actually call a tune in terms of when he goes, and whether that is Old Trafford in a couple of weeks' time, which I doubt, whether it is the end of the Ashes, or whether it is next year, or even beyond. It'd be nice to see him saying, right, that's going to be my last Test match. That's going to be when I finish.
Yes.
And when he gets carried off the pitch, or Guard of Honours and all the rest of it, what happens when you get to 39/40? Because he's only just turned 39, but by this time next year he'll be 40. If you get an injury, it takes a lot longer to get over it. Your body heals, takes longer to heal.
Exactly.
He's not 21 anymore and can just kind of skip off an injury. So hopefully he doesn't finish, because Dale Stein's kind of finished a bit stop-start, hasn't he? Because he's never really been fighting fit, never been able to kind of sustain it. Obviously, he's
Ishant Sharma as well.
Yeah, he's announced his retirement today, Dale Steyn, and
yes,
he's kind of gone out off the pitch, kind of thing, hasn't he? Behind the scenes, he's a legend too, and it's nice to be able to see your legends walk off holding the ball high, and the crowd being able to actually, for one last time, say thanks very much.
Because you look at James Anderson when he takes wickets, his body language, is very positive. You saw when he got out Virat Kohli, he doesn't really act. He doesn't really react like that. So you can he still has the fire in the belly. He still has the passion to keep going. And I just don't from what I've seen of his body language, I don't see him retiring anytime soon. I think he still has that fire.
I actually think Stuart Broad's possibly more likely to retire before Jimmy. If they, obviously Stuart Broad's had the injury in the summer, but he's a little bit younger. But I think Stuart Broad's probably got more business opportunities off the pitch. He's going to get married. There's other things. I mean, it's easy for us to get myopically thinking cricket is the be all and end all of everything, and having that Test shirt is the only thing that matters. But as I saw Zach Crawley the other day playing for Kent, massive smile on his face, loving it. And there are other things, it's not that Test call isn't the only thing in the world that matters. And I think Stuart Broad might actually realise that before Jimmy in some ways, because he's got business interests. He's kind of already done some media work. I can see him possibly, as long as Jimmy stays fit, actually hanging up his boots before Jimmy Anderson does.
That's the big statement from James Buttler. I think if you talk about Stuart Broad, I think he will play for more 4 more years. I think he will carry on playing. Let's see what happens with the Stuart Broad. Let's back to the fourth Test preview. I say I think the question remains the same. If Chris Woakes backs, if you see his name play in the playing 11, who will sit out in the fourth Test? I think Overton bowled really well. Robinson bowled really well. Will you see Sam Curran, because he hasn't performed as much as to his expectation, hasn't performed with the bat, hasn't performed with the ball. So do you see him to be dropped in place of Chris Woakes?
He'd be my call. Yeah, Sam Curran. He's a terrific player. He's got a great attitude. I just don't see him as being in England's first 11 if everybody's fit. Certainly not in Test cricket. One day cricket maybe. And it's strange because he got picked in Test matches and played more Test matches before he really started playing the white ball. But I think he's possibly more dangerous than the white ball. And I think in Test cricket he's not quite quick enough. If it doesn't swing, he looks a bit powder puff, and his batting is a little bit. I've never seen him play in innings where he's not just come out and counter-attacked and played a cameo, rather than actually kind of got his nose over the ball and really fought hard for it. And he needs, if he's going to have a longer Test career, he needs to either add a little bit to his batting, or a medium bit to his batting, or he needs to add a bit of pace to his bowling. Because I don't think either are quite good enough at the moment. And he's kind of stuck in that position at 8 or 9 in the order and as fourth seamer, where that can be filled by somebody else, can't it? And I think Chris Woakes is better batting and he's better at bowling.
Yes. So I think that will be one more thing. One more thing I want to ask about that. Will England make any changes on the batting lineup? Will we see Ollie Pope returning to the Test squad in this fourth Test match? Will we see Sam Billings will keep wickets for England in this Test series I'm talking about? Because Johnny Bairstow hasn't performed too well as England were expecting from him. I think he had made only 150 in this 3 Test matches.
I think Johnny Bairstow's looked quite good actually in this series. He might have got out when he's got to 30, but he's batted well for that 30. And I think there's possibly a big score around the corner because he looks like he's a lot more balanced and at the crease than he has done in recent times. They've already said, I think, that he's going to keep Johnny Bairstow, so he will keep wicket and possibly move down a slot number 6 to fill the Jos Buttler hole that's left there. I actually think Jos Buttler is somebody who was kind of teetering on the edge of being dropped anyway. I think if he'd had a couple more test matches in the same vein that he'd had, he would have been on the plane to Australia because then they wouldn't have left him behind. But I don't know if he'd have started. So it's possibly come at quite a good time, this baby, to just kind of distract people from the fact that he wasn't actually playing very well. So I think Johnny will go to 6, and then it's a choice between either Dan Lawrence or Ollie Pope to come in at number 5. I think Sam Billings was purely called in as cover rather than, if Johnny Bairstow gets hit on the thumb in the nets or something and can't keep wicket, then Sam Billings would come in then. But I think it'll be the same openers. David Malan's obviously not going to be shifted from 3. I don't think even you, Gaurav, would drop Joe Root at 4. And then you're talking
I
Lawrence.
would hope so. I would hope
Lawrence or Pope at 5 and then Bairstow at 6.
Okay. So this question was for my uncle because my uncle is a very big fan of Sam Billings. He wants to see him playing test matches because he has been performing batting very well in this 100 in the 50s 50 over tournament or even T20 cricket. So that question was totally for him. Let's moving on to the.
Can I just come back on that very quickly, Gaurav? I don't think hitting a white ball is any indication. I mean, this is what Lucas was talking about in the run up to the Ashes.
Yes.
About picking the Australian side off the back of the Big Bash. It shows if you're hitting the ball in the middle, then fair enough, that might give you an indication, but it doesn't give you any indication as to whether somebody can play Test cricket or not. If they can hit 36 off 23 balls in a T20, does not mean they're a Test cricketer.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think I have covered all the bases on the England topic. I want to ask one more thing. Let's talk about Indian team also. What changes you could expect? Being an Indian, I want to see Ravichandra Ashwin, and if I want to include Ravichandra Ashwin, I definitely want to ask about the pitches. That will we see any turn on this Oval Test match?
Yeah, I mean, the Oval's likely to turn towards the end of it, and I think Old Trafford certainly will. So I can see Ashwin coming in for the final 2 Test matches. I certainly don't think he'd be happy sitting there with a bib on for all 5 Test matches. So I think he comes in. I don't think Ishant Sharma had the best game at Headingley.
No.
So I think he probably makes way. That gives you a slightly shorter tail. Because the tail is awful, isn't it, for India?
Yes.
I know it had its day. I know it had its day in the sun at Lords that day, but generally speaking, that tail is a long tail. So I think that'll be a change. I've also heard a few people suggesting that Rahane might make way for somebody like Vihari. To me, you don't take your vice captain out for the 4th Test match when it's one
the
apiece.
main problem, I don't think that they will make a call on Ajinkya Rahane yet, considering he has performed very well in this Lord's Test match in the second inning where he scored 60 odd runs, I think. So I don't think they will make a call as soon as possible. But people in India is not happy with Ajinkya Rahane just because he's not because of this vice captaincy and all this, just because he's not been consistent as a player for a very long period of time, and that's the main reason.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I think Virat Kohli is quite loyal, isn't he, to his inner circle?
Yes.
I think he wants to be surrounded by people he trusts, and I think he certainly trusts Ajinkya Rahane. So I don't think he's going to be dropping Rahane anytime soon. The only other option, I mean, Siraj has played all of the Test matches so far. So's Bumrah. Whether they bring in Shardul Thakur, I think fit again. That's a potential. But for me, the Oval, I think it has got a little bit more bowler friendly seam wise in the last few years, and it's not quite the 500 play 600 track it used to be, because it always was a road, but it still could be a decent batting track. And I think you're looking for bowlers that provide you with something a little bit different, and that's why Mark Wood, I think, comes back into the equation for England. That's why somebody like Siraj, who gives you that little bit of attitude, doesn't he, and runs in and tries
Yes.
something a bit different. That's
Yes.
why they, I think, might be good selections on the oval, because Virat's been more and more throwing the ball to Siraj and saying, "Can you break this partnership?" kind of thing, hasn't he? And Siraj might be quite a good asset to have at the oval, I think.
Okay, just one more thing, and I will take one question from Harsh Singh. He has said, I think Shardul will play in place of Ishant. Ishant will definitely get dropped once what happened with him in this third test, where he not looked as to his what you call it as expectation, that he hasn't performed very well. I want to ask James that will you go with the 3-2 combination, as if you are in Indian side? Will you go if you are a Virat Kohli? Just for example, just for a minute, you think if you are in an Indian side, if you are a Virat Kohli, will you go in a oval with 3-2 combination, that two spinner and three fast bowler, or will you go with 4-1 combination?
Do I get Virat Kohli's money for the period of this answer? Because
No, 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 no. It doesn't get so much
I can
easy.
stretch this answer out for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I've got better bank account. But I'd go 3-2. I think Jadeja is playing well. I certainly don't think you reduce that. You lengthen that tail at all. That tail is.
Yeah.
I mean, from in that Headingley Test match, even at 2 down, England will have started that day 4 thinking, right, if we can take 2 or 3 early wickets, or even in the first session 2 or 3 wickets, we're into the tail soon. And it just gives England a lift, doesn't it? You see Rishabh Pant walk out, you see Jadeja walk out, and you know the next person to walk out is averaging 10 in Test cricket. And that just gives you a massive lift. So I'd not move Jadeja, and I think he could provide decent overs of spin. Ashwin comes in for me, and then you play Siraj, Bumrah, and who would the other one be? Who have I missed?
Shami, Mohammad Shami.
Yeah, Shami. And Shami's been bowling really well in this series. So
Yes,
that'd be my.
there has been a lot of talk about earlier that Mohammad Shami doesn't bowl as an England line length, where you need to pitch the ball up, but he has been bowling really well from the first test. He has been hitting those length very hard.
I mean, the only thing that comes into the equation there is, and we're not privy to the dressing room and the physio's notebook. If any of them have just pulled up a little bit tired after the third test match, that's the only thing that would change it, because there's not they got an extra day by losing a day earlier, Gaurav. I don't want to mention the third test too much, but it's a quick turnaround, and then there's the 5th test to come. So that's the only thing I think that would change that selection for me. If one of those is a little bit lame or a bit tired, then Shardul might come in, but otherwise I'd keep it to 3 and 2.
I think if India will go with a 4-1 combination, I think they will include Shardul Thakur no matter what, because he provides batting also. And if they want to go with 3-2, I think Ravichandra Ashwin. I think Ashwin will play in the over no matter what. Okay,
I think with the batting order, it's all right if your top order's firing, isn't it? If your batsmen are scoring runs, but there's so many Indians that are finding it hard to actually string a series of scores together. Pujara got his 91 at Headingley. Rahani's chipped in with a 50. They've been kind of Virat's struggling. I mean, Virat's rhythm looks completely off. I think Rohit's probably looked the better of the best of the Indian batsmen, but
exactly.
Excuse me, but there's nobody there that you can really, like with Joe Root, you can almost hang your hat on him and say that he's going to score runs. There's nobody in that Indian side that you're thinking there's a cast iron century. I mean, you can never guarantee that anyway, but there's nobody that really kind of fills you with a massive amount of confidence in that Indian side. And that's when you've got the problem, isn't it? When you're 8, 9, 10 and 11 are rabbits, and your top 7, because Rishabh Pant's out of form. You can't afford to have a long tail.
Yes, I hope he scores those 100 in the 4th and 5th test match. In the remaining test matches, Rishabh Pant needs to fire, because our middle order hasn't been firing at all. Okay, so just one more thing I want to discuss, because I won't let you go so easily, that once you come after the 4th test match, you will say India could have batted, India could have bowled. So if you are winning the toss in this oval test match, what will you do?
Absolutely no doubt about it. You bat.
Okay, so it means it's a flat track. We will
there may be a bit of help there, but you've got to. I think, as I say, at Headingley it might have been a little bit different, but at the Oval, it's known to be a batting track. it also comes into kind of like the psychology and the body language of the match, doesn't it? If you take a back step and you say, right, you take first bat, you're almost saying, I don't trust our batsmen to actually do a job on this surface. And I think by winning the toss, calling right, and then saying, right, we're going to have first bat, it's a positive signal to give to the opposition too.
Lucas, you want to ask something?
The return of the LV County Championship was on yesterday. Resumed yesterday. How did the ex-England players like Dom Sibley, Ollie Pope, Jack Leach, how are they doing at this moment in this round?
Do you know what, Lucas? I'm not sure. I didn't get didn't get a chance to look at it yesterday. I didn't hear any headlines that they did too much. I think it was a fairly low-scoring affair across the board yesterday. There was a little bit of rain around or a bit of weather around as well. So I don't think anybody got a huge score. But I didn't hear the name Sibley, Pope, or any of the other guys. I don't think Pope will be playing because he'll be with the squad, I think. But Sibley will certainly be playing for Warwickshire, Crawley for Kent. And I didn't hear their names hitting the headlines. So I assume they didn't either bat or didn't do anything.
Lucas?
I actually want to mention Joe Root's captaincy. Do you think he needs to win the Ashes in Australia to be the best ever England captain? Or has he already got it?
I think he has overtaken Michael Vaughan to being a successful the best successful captain in this England currently right now.
That was his 27th win
yes.
in the third test that we don't mention anymore. And so he's the most successful in terms of victories.
Yeah.
I've been asked that question actually a couple of times this week, and it's interesting because I actually think this series against India is actually probably a tougher series than the Ashes might be this winter. Going to Australia is always difficult, but I don't think it's vintage Australia at the moment, and they've got a couple of problems. Whereas I think India are the best test side in the world at the moment. So if he can win this series, then I think that goes down. But it'll only be classed as a home win. I saw there was a ridiculous comment on one of my notifications on Twitter the other day when people were discussing team selection for India, and somebody said something along the lines, I could pick my granddad in this Indian side. And they'd still lose. Because one bad performance, everybody's got such sort of recency bias. 78 all out, and all of a sudden India are rubbish. You can guarantee India will bounce back at the Oval. They will come back hard at England, and England are going to have to be on their guard for that. But I think, generally speaking, if you look down the list of captains that are considered to be great English captains of yesteryear, they have all held the Ashes urn in triumph at some stage. Increasingly, winning in India is another sort of feather in the cap, but the Ashes urn is the one. And I think if Joe Root doesn't win it this winter, then it'll be 3 series he's not held the urn at the end of, and that is I don't think any other England captain has been given that length of stay. It's only because he's been winning other series, and there isn't really another opportunity, another viable alternative that he's probably held on to it quite as long. I think he's got better. I don't think he's the real deal as captain. I think he's probably about a 7 out of 10. But if he wants to go down as a great England captain, he has to win this winter.
And my final question is: still no progress made with the Australian Cricket Board and their families with English cricket.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it feels like it's a long time, but it's not actually that long, is it? Till they board the plane. We're kind of at the end of August, so we got September, October, and we're into November, where they'll be flying at the end of November, won't they? So we're only sort of 2.5 months away from boarding that plane, and that can go very, very quickly. And we know with COVID, it can change just like that, or it can stay around, or it can, So we might get to 2.5. But what I gather is that there's a lot of players that are very much umming and ahhing about whether they'll commit to a tour where they can't take their wives and girlfriends and kids and because it's a long old trip
Yes.
and it's a
Yeah.
stressful trip, and you need to get a bit
Yeah.
of an escape from it. And particularly if you're isolated in a hotel where you've not got the chance to do the usual stuff in Australia and go down the beach and go down to your favorite fish restaurant
Yeah.
in such or whatever. You haven't got that potential this time. So I think having the wives and girlfriends and the family there is important. So I can totally understand why some of them are saying, I'm not actually that keen. I put out a tweet the other day when Jos Buttler said what he said about
Yes.
it was effectively keeping my options open, wasn't it, in terms of the Ashes?
Yeah.
And I tweeted that I felt really torn by that statement because I'm a massive advocate of looking after players' mental health all the way through the last 18 months. I've said if a player wants to have a break, it should be no questions asked. And sitting in a hotel room on your own is pretty tough, I think, especially if you're not doing very well on the pitch. But there is another part of me, and it's the selfish side of me that is kind of moving away from that understanding part of the James psyche. That's thinking this is the Ashes. This is what.
Yes.
Ever since we were old enough to actually understand what cricket meant, the Ashes was what. When you were a kid playing in your back garden, you wanted to captain your country in the Ashes, and that was all that mattered. And there are other great series against India and New Zealand increasingly and what have you, but the Ashes is so important to English people and Australians. To not get on a plane to go to the Ashes because you might have 2 months without your family. I can't ever imagine myself making that decision. I would not like it, and I would not want to do it, and I'd find it difficult. But it's the Ashes, and that's kind of but it's the Ashes comes at the end of every single sentence that goes around in my head, because it's huge and it's very, very important to English people. So I am massively in favour of mental health. I think players need to be looked after. I wouldn't have long-term grudges against anybody that didn't board that plane to go to Australia, but it's the Ashes, and that's where it always comes back to in my head. So it's difficult. It's a difficult time, isn't it?
Yes, and you have talked about that somebody's tweeted that even my grandfather and whatever it is that can make to this India team. I have seen some of the tweets after the 78 all out that the South African guy. Come on, the South African guy told this that India is about to tour in January to the South Africa. I hope you know this. So South Africa will thrash this Indian team by 3-0. I said, hang on, what are you talking about? This South African team who is going through a transition period and who is losing this series in their home will beat 3-0 to this Indian team. Okay, you can say whatever you want to. So James Buttler, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope when we meet after this fourth test match, we will be 2-1 up.
Well, one of us will. I know, and actually, I fancy the draw. I actually fancy the draw.
No. It has been a very long period of time since we have won this series in England. We desperately want to win this series this time around because this is the best time for us to win a series in England. So I hope so. Whatever. I think my prediction was earlier. Once I have done a shows with you for the very first time, my prediction was 2-1 India. So you predicted that it will be a draw series, right?
I couldn't make my mind up, but I do think this test will be a draw, and it'll go to Old Trafford with all to play for.
I will be happy if this test match draw. I just want to win that series in Manchester or even Oval. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when we will win.
I'll tell you what, though, Gaurav, it's even that series in India after England won the first Test match, that was kind of live all the way through, and the fact that England won the Test match at Headingley. You might not have liked it, but it's leveled the series up at 1 apiece with 2 to play. So it means whatever the results at the Oval, Old Trafford will still mean something. So there's no dead rubbers in this 5-match series.
I do agree.
I think it's great. That's great for Test cricket. And we've seen some brilliant Test cricket. Some of the sessions have been absolutely superb. I'm absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Yes, just I don't want to get to bundle out easily on the first test of the first session of a second session. So let's hope we will meet after this fourth test match to get over Till then, James, take care. I hope we will meet after this fourth test match. Till then, guys, do like the video. Don't forget to subscribe it and hit the bell icon. Till then, we will meet tomorrow after whatever it is. We will meet tomorrow. Till then, James, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure, Gaurav, as always. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, guys.